الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب السماوات ورب الأرض رب العالمين، وله الكبرياء في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. الحمد لله الذي نعمته المصالحات. ربنا لك الحمد حتى ترضى، ولك الحمد إذا رضيت، ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيد الأولين والآخرين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله وأمين على وحيه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وتنظر نفس ما قدمت بغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, all thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything we have. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِّعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. And we are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all our needs. And when ta'uduna Allahi la tuhsuha, there is hardly anything that we can do to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for all that He has given us. The respected brother and sister in Islam, in these days, usually people have that discussion of Thanksgiving, celebrate, don't celebrate, what kind of occasion is this? I strongly recommend that you take advantage of this and turn it into an opportunity, talking to your children and family members about the concept of gratitude in Islam and thankfulness, how we need to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not once a year, but all our life, and how that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so much, and that we need to express that gratitude first, consistently, and second, in words and in deeds. The more Allah gives you, the more you share, and the more you give away. So for us, it's not annual occasion, it is an essential part of our belief, an essential part of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to feel that Allah has given us so much that we're looking for ways to express that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the solid foundations of Iman is that feeling, that you feel that Allah has given you so much and that you are drowning in the mercy of Allah, and you're looking for ways to express that gratitude. Reminding yourself of this can strengthen your Iman. It's an effective tool to strengthen your Iman. You want to reach a point where you feel that if it was not because Allah does not like, if we don't ask, you feel either you feel embarrassed to ask because of what you already have been given. But you ask just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you, that you ask. But you always feel that you are again drowning in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear respected brother and sister in Islam, as I mentioned, our journey in Islam and in life starts by pledging to dedicate your life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the whole idea of Islam. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ دِينًا مِمَّنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ إِذْ قَالَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ أَسْلِمْ قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ. It's that pledge that you're going to dedicate your life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to make the pursuit of Ridwanullah, to make Allah pleased with you, your ultimate goal and your guiding priority. That's what you use to make all decisions. That's the direction and that's the scale that you use to make all your decisions. That should be your ultimate purpose and your guiding priority in life. One track in our life is to be working on that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One track in Islam, one essential track in Islam, is to be working on the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is like any other relationship. If you don't nurture it, it dies out. It becomes weak and superficial and dull. It has to be nurtured. And one of the best way and the most effective way to nurture your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is studying the Quran. There is no better way than studying the Quran, because in Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about Himself. So the more you study the Quran, the more you know Allah, the closer you find yourself to Allah. And all aspects, Quran works on all aspects of your relationship with Allah. Makes you love Allah more, makes you revere Allah more, makes you more grateful, works on different verses, work on different aspects of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the other way is to contemplate on the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق أولم يكفي بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد. Soon we'll show them our sign in the furthest regions in the universe, learning about planets, learning about this universe. سنريهم آيات in the farthest regions of the earth and in their own souls, learning about yourself, learning about your body. And that Quran tells us that strengthen your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until it becomes manifest to them that this is the truth. That strengthen your iman, that contemplation on the universe and contemplation on your own self. Now this pledge, this is the pledge that companions have made, and this is the pledge that you have made. Whether you are aware of it or not, by deciding to become Muslim or to be Muslim, you made that pledge to dedicate your life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What's the implication of this? It's basically to commit and do everything you can to fulfill the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That becomes your mission in life. Whatever Allah likes to happen, that becomes your duty or your job. This is the golden link that is missing nowadays. Between, if you are serious about Allah being pleased with you, then you have to do everything you can to fulfill the purpose of Allah. The golden link between Ridwan Allah and Murad Allah. Pursuing Ittiba' Ridwan Allah, Infad Murad Allah. They are one package. If you are serious about pursuing the Ridwan Allah, then you should spare no effort in fulfilling the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is how Islam should be defined. Islam should not be defined as a list of tasks. Islam should be defined, in my opinion, as a commitment to fulfill the purpose of Allah in pursuit of Ridwan Allah. In fact, Murad Allah, Ibtigha' Ridwan Allah. That's what you're pledging. From now on, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to happen on earth, I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. That's the whole idea of being servant of Allah. And being servant of Allah is an honor. So being servant of someone else is bad. Being servant of Allah, it's an honor. Quran gives this honor even to the Prophet. Alhamdulillah, الذي نزل على عبده فرقان and al-kitab. So what does this mean? It means that in every situation in life, in every situation, every moment in your life, in every situation you find yourself in, you have to try to figure out what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to do or expects you to do. And do it. With no hesitation, no reluctance. Quran says, فَلَوَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُونَ فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. They won't be true believers until they refer to you, to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the Quran and to the Sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in all their matters. Not only they refer, and they accept the decision with no reluctance. وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم. It is not fitting, it's not appropriate for a believing man or woman, if Allah and His Messenger decree something, to have a choice of their own. There is no second thought, there is no hesitation, there is no reluctance. There is immediate response. That's the whole idea of being true servant. Now, we have been talking about how this translates in life. It translates in life into commitment to the mission of Islam. And we explained what is this mission of Islam, that consists of two key words that every Muslim should master, that is tazkiyah and islah. To be the best version of yourself and help people around you being the best versions of themselves. That's your essential duty in Islam. And second, to maximize your contribution to make this world a better place. Whatever you can do. Whatever you can do to make this world more just, more peaceful, more secure, more prosperous, etc., that's your mission in life. Whatever you can do to be a better person today than yesterday and tomorrow than today, that's your mission in life. So, and then whatever you can do to help people around you, starting with your immediate circle to make them better people, with your by example and by sharing knowledge and wisdom and advice and life experience. And we talked in details about this last time. That working on 4 tracks now. Your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yourself, the people around you, and your environment. What can you do to make this environment more pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Something closer to the design that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in doing this, you have to keep in mind the ultimate purposes of Islam, what they call maqasid ad-din. This is something that is not unfortunately emphasized enough, even though it is essential in Islam. And I'd like to define Islam as risala bi maqasid. It's a mission with purposes. It is a mission that you commit to fulfill it to the best of your ability, with purposes that you need to do your utmost to achieve them. It is a mission that you do everything you can to fulfill it to the best of your ability. And there are goals that you need to do everything you can to contribute, to maximize your contribution to them. That's what you're going to be held accountable about, by the way, on the Day of Judgment. So that nobody will be surprised. Yes, it's important to pray, it's important to observe the fara'id, but these are part of the accountability. And they're essential part. What did you do to be a better person? What did you contribute to people around you? What impact you had on people around you? And what did you contribute to this world? That's what you should hold yourself accountable every night when you go to sleep. Check what did you do on all these 4 tracks. Once you have a mission and purpose in life, that streamlines your life. No confusion, no distraction, no stress, nothing. You know what you want, you know what you're doing, and that will make life no longer be a routine. There is no such thing as routine in the life of a believer. You wake up every day in the morning, you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given you another day to do that job. You know that you have a job to do in this life, and Allah gave you an extra day. So you need to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that opportunity and do your best to take advantage of it. Again, to improve your records with Allah, because that's what they're going to decide your destiny on the Day of Judgment. اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. You'll be given a book and you'll be told, be your own judge. And you're going to open that book and you find missed opportunities and things. So make sure that you wake up in the morning. That's the first thing that should come to your mind. Be grateful to Allah for the opportunity and make sure to do your best to take advantage of it. Now you proceed in your day with a clear sense of purpose. You are someone who's living on purpose. There is a purpose in your life, you have a mission and purpose, you have a clear sense of priorities. You're not lost. You're not going to be distracted. You have a clear sense of priority and also and direction, and also clear sense of urgency, because the clock is ticking. You're always racing against the clock. In this life, we're competing with others. Who's going to be the best? And we're racing against the clock, because the clock is ticking. Then you're going to be faced with the challenges of life. Now you start already having that mission and that purpose and knowing what you want to do in this extra day that you were given. But again, life is going to throw on your plate some challenges, some tests, and some choices, and some decisions to make. Once you put this in perspective, then you have to realize that this is going to translate, number one, to clear roles and responsibilities in this life that you have to do your best to perfect them. You are a spouse, that's a big responsibility. You are a parent, that's a big responsibility and role. All of these are duties. You have a body to take care of it. So your different roles and responsibilities. You are a member of the community. You ask yourself, what is my responsibility? Your responsibility is to contribute to the mosque and share the burden, because at the end of the day, this mosque is not supported by government or anybody, it is by the people who are attending it. So you feel that sense of responsibility and you make your contribution, whether you volunteer your time or you give some of your money in order to be, that's your duty as a member of the community, member of the neighborhood, that requires certain responsibility that you have to fulfill, etc. So roles and responsibility, and of course on top of these roles and responsibility comes the fact that you are a spouse and you are a parent. You are a spouse, you are responsible to build and manage successful and happy family, and you are a parent, you are responsible to raise your children successfully, happy and successful children. So roles and responsibility, that's number one. Then we're going to be talking about the tests of life and the decision that you make. Every day we are faced with some tests and some choices and some decisions. If you want to live happy and be successful in this life and in the hereafter, one, fulfill that mission to the best of your ability and maximize your contribution to the ultimate purposes of the deen, divine purposes. Two, perfect your roles and responsibilities that I mentioned. Number three, successfully handle the tests of life. Number four, effectively making your decision and choices. This is, if you really want to succeed both in this life and in the hereafter, mission to fulfill, ultimate purposes to contribute to maximize your contribution, maqasid, roles and responsibility that you have to fulfill and try to perfect, tests of life that you handle properly and successfully, decisions and choices that you make, that you have to make them effective. If you know how to handle, if you know how to do this, then your life will be very, very smooth. That will, alhamdulillah, as believers, we were given very effective decision-making process, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Of course, we talked about the tests of life. One, you have to expect them, because Quran says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ وَلَتُبْلَوُنَّ. So you're going to be tested. So there should be no surprise. You are already expecting to be tested, because as long you're living, you'll be tested. And thus, they come in two different ways. Comes with a blessing. That's a test. If you're given any favor, blessing from Allah, that's a test. You should know how to handle it. Should make you more grateful, more thankful, and do more fi sabilillah. the more Allah gives you, the more thankful you are, the more humble you are, and the more generous you are. That's how you succeed with this kind of tests. You meet them by becoming thankful, more grateful, more thankful, more humble, and more generous. You do that, you succeeded. How about the tests with difficulties? That's open another door that will bring you closer to Allah, which is the door of patience and sabr. إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. There is unlimited rewards for those who are patient. So you know, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الصَّابِرِينَ. Allah loves those who are patient. So Allah opens another door for you. We shouldn't wish for difficulties. We pray to Allah to protect us against anything. But when it happens, you know how to handle it. Always patience, perseverance. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because no matter how hard your test is, there are harder tests. You still have things that are dreams for others. So you still have a lot to thank Allah for, even as you are being tested with difficulties. But then we move to the last item, which is making decisions. Effective decision-making process. Unfortunately, a lot of individual problems, a lot of community problems, and of course community and society, but a lot of individual and family problems are the result of very ineffective decision-making process. People don't know how to make choices and decisions. Number one, you have to accept the fact that anything that is happening in your life is the result of a decision or choice that you made before. قل هو من عندي أنفسكم فبما كسبت أيديكم. Quran says this. So anything that you are experiencing in life, it's a result of a choice or decision that you made before. And then anything that you are facing in life is a choice even if you're not aware. This idea of I have no choice is wrong. Most of the people, they use all the time, I did this because I had no choice. That's not true. You chose to do this out of other alternatives that you did not consider. Either you were not aware of them, or they were not convenient, whatever. But this idea of always justifying what we do because we have no choice, that's not true. 99.9% of the time in this life, you have a choice. But if you make the bad choice, then you have only yourself to blame. The first thing whenever you have to make a decision is to know the limits. What is permissible Islamically? What is within your rights? Don't cross those limits under any circumstance. Don't cross your limits. The limits imposed by the deen. That's the first thing that you need to know, because all the work has to be done within those limits. A lot of problems in relationships are happening because people exceed their limits and abuse others. They don't restrain themselves. They don't stay within their limits. You find this between spouses. You find this between parents and children. People that are not very good at restraining themselves and staying within their limits. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Then if you are setting a goal or a plan or a battle that you are engaged in, you have to know that it has to be right. Not only the goal has to be right, but also the means. Because a lot of time people have the best of the intentions, but they pursue a goal with the wrong means and end up backfiring. I'm going to give you some examples. So you want to make sure that not only the goals are right or good, but also the means, because ends don't justify the means. Don't give yourself something that is not your right. Even in when you can. Don't give yourself something. Spouses have rights, children have rights, everybody has. Don't give yourself something that is outside your limits. Now within those limits, as a good believer, we need to try to figure out which one is more pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's where the istikhara comes in. Very effective tool when you pray 2 rak'ah and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you making the right choice when you are not sure. You know that both of them things are halal, both are okay, so within the limits, but you're not sure which way to go. That's where istikhara, pray 2 rak'ah and make a dua. The whole thing will not take you more than a couple minutes, and it's basically asking Allah to guide you to the right choice because you're not sure. And then comes also weighing the benefit and the harm, something that people unfortunately are not very good at. Because it's not enough that the goal is right, but is it worth it? Because anytime you find the harm outweighs the good, that's a clear no as a Muslim. مصالح والمفاسد. درء المفسدة مقدم على جلب المصلحة. Anytime, even if you have the best of intention, but if the harm outweighs the good, then it's a no. So make sure that you use that scale all the time. It's not. You ask yourself the 2 key questions. Is it right? And then is it worth it? Because at the end of the day, you're going to put some time and energy. It has to be worth it. It has to be right, and then also it has to be worth it. I'll give you examples of people, unfortunately, when they don't follow these rules. Now, let's say you see a bad habit in your spouse or even in your child, and you want to change it. Now, number one, you have to know, or you have to distinguish between there is a bad habit that is haram, and there is a bad habit that you just don't like it. These are not the same thing. Because you can live with something that you don't like it, if your spouse is doing, but it's not haram. It's not harmful, it's not haram, but you just don't like it. Or your child is doing it. It's a bad habit, you don't like it, but you can live with it. So you need to distinguish between the 2. And then comes how to do it. First of all, changing people, this is something that you need to take it out of your mind. There is no such thing as you're going to change somebody completely. That's changing one thing at a time. And second, how to do it. Because a lot of time, people do it in a way that only backfires. A parent wants a child to pray. Very good. How? By hammering it all the time and try to make their life miserable, it's going to backfire. That child is going to hate something called prayer, and even if they pray because they are afraid until they grow up, and then they're going to stop. You want your child to do better in school. That's a very good, noble goal. How? If you're doing it the wrong way, your child will hate school. So there is, even when the goal is right, there is a right way and there is a wrong way. Make sure that this idea of twisting arm or making the life of someone miserable just because you want to force your way on them, make sure you realize that this is very bad. It always brings bad results. If you force something on your child, you kill their self-esteem and their self-confidence. That's one. That's if you succeed. If you don't succeed, your child is going to go to the other extreme. So what's the point? It's always convincing. It's always the smart, the wise means to get things done. And it always costs much less to follow those wise ways and smart ways as opposed to the wrong ways. So make sure that whether the issue is minor, you can overlook it, or if you're going to put some effort, it has to be minimal. You don't put a lot of energy and effort on something that is minor. That's why I keep saying, is it worth it? It is worth the time and the energy that you're going to put in it. So the goal has to be right, and it has to be worthwhile, and then the means have to be correct in order to get things done and to avoid this backfiring, because that is happening all the time too. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه. نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. Dear respected brother and sister in Islam, inshallah, we continue about this effective decision-making process, and even after you make a decision, how you should keep all your options open. And if you find yourself that you made the wrong decision, don't let the ego stand in the way of cutting your losses and changing courses or consider better option. That should be the smart thing and the wise thing to do. We'll conclude, inshallah, with a couple of words about what's happening in the Middle East. Now, alhamdulillah, ceasefire in Lebanon took place. Hopefully, inshallah, will happen in Gaza sooner rather than later, and this whole war will stop. But I really wish and hope and pray that after the dust settle, people will do some assessment, because it is enough that we keep doing the same thing and without no assessment, no self-evaluation, no lessons learned, and therefore we keep repeating mistakes over and over again. They say usually during the time of war we shouldn't criticize or evaluate, fine. But once it's over, I hope people will have the courage to say, okay, let's see what went wrong. What lessons do we learn? And document this for future generation, so that people will build on lessons learned. Because that's something that we didn't do for a long time. And we have seen things happen the same way, exactly, over and over again, and lead to the same results with no lessons learned. If all these lives were paid, at least we need to extract very valuable lessons out of this tragedy. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا وتوفنا وانت راض عنا واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا واجعل خير أعمالنا خواتمها خير أيام يوم نلقاك. ربنا ارحم والدينا كما ربونا صغارا وارحم موتانا جميع موتى المسلمين. لا إله إلا